What are the 7 key power principles on the forehand? In this video, I'm going to go over the 7 ways that you can add power to your forehand. Now, looking to hit with power can be a double-edged sword. Now, a lot of players end up trying to muscle the ball, and when they do that, they overcompensate with the upper body, which puts more stress in the arm joints and can lead to possible injury. Also, when you overuse the upper body, it shortens the hitting zone and it puts the spin on the wrong axis of the ball, so it often leads to more unforced errors. So that's why it's so important when you're looking to add power to your forehand that you're not straying away from the fundamentals. So in this lesson, I'm going to go over the 7 key power principles on the forehand. Now, 6 of them apply to most players, and the 7th, which I'm going to call a bonus, applies to advanced players. Now, as I go through these principles, I'll also indicate to you how it applies to beginning players, intermediate players, and advanced players. Sometimes I'll even show you some slight adaptations that you can make to each of these levels. So how do you get the most out of this lesson? Now, this is a deep dive where I'm going to give you the facts, where the power comes from. I've also laid it out in a methodical order so you can choose to follow it step by step, or you may pinpoint the key forehand power principle which your forehand may be lacking and then choose to focus on that. Now, the first power principle is keeping your eyes fixed at the point of contact. Now, this is so important and applies to all players at all levels, and that's why we're starting with it. Now, it sounds easy, but this is a common mistake a lot of players make. Now, why is that so important? Well, if I line up over here, my contact point with the Billie Jean King eye coach, with my eyes fixed at the ball, look where my contact is. It's in the sweet spot, the center of the strings. Now, if I simply lift my head up, see how now that results in a miss hit. Now, the research done by the team here shows us that 8 out of 10 balls hit at the recreational level are miss hits. Now, you might be wondering, how does keeping your head still result in more power? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first is that, think about it this way. If you hit the ball in the sweet spot versus off-centered, when you have that sweet spot hit, the ball flies off the racket more effortlessly and you get the maximum spring effect. Also, when you hit the ball off-center, it could result in a miss hit and more unforced errors. Now, when it comes to the second reason, is that when we get into the kinetic chain, by keeping your head still, it helps with the stopping effect. So you can use the linkage system for more effortless power. So how can you work on this? Now, this idea comes from Tiger Woods, and they say that when he's putting, he does not look up until he sees the ghost of the ball. Well, what is the ghost of the ball? Well, you'll see this outline of the ball, and it's called persistence of vision. It's how cartoons work, where basically your retina will hold that image. So if I place this ball down on the ground, keep staring at it, keep staring at that point after I putted the ball, I'll see this outline of the ball. By the time I see that, the ball's already gone. So if I lift my head up, it's not going to affect the ball. Now, I do find your brain needs something concrete to look for. That's where also you can use the Billie Jean King eye coach. It can train you to keep your eyes at contact because the ball's not leaving the racket. But you can also try to see that persistence of vision. So if I strike the ball here, you can almost see like one ball kind of holds there for a split second. So this is a great device, if you're interested, to help you to train your eyes, keep your head still, and you can do it at home and get a lot of repetitions in. So there will be a link below this if you're interested, and you can apply all these drills at home using the Billie Jean King eye coach. So now let's try this again and see if you can see this at home. What I want you to do is I want you to be staring at the ball. Now, once I putt the ball away, I want you to continue to be looking at where the ball was. Let's try it one more time. So I definitely encourage you to try that. You can even do this right now at home, is line up like you're gonna putt and don't look up until you see the outline of the ball. That way, when your head moves, it does not affect contact. So let me know in the comments if you saw that sort of outline of the ball, almost like a shadow, after the ball rolled away. Now, from there, you can then do a self feed, and it could look different from player to player or stroke to stroke. Whoops, sometimes when you look for this at contact, you may see a couple of balls going out like this, or you might see one ball just hanging there like a stationary ball. So I'm going to just do a self feed here on my forehand. And as I do that, I'm looking for it. I just see this ball just hanging there for a fraction of a second. By the time I see that and recognized it, If I lift my head, the ball's already traveled away from me and I cannot affect the outcome. So that's the first principle, keeping your head still. There's some ideas and some drills to help you with that. Obviously from the self-feed, you then will introduce into a ball machine and rallying with a practice partner. Now the second key power principle is using the body segments and the kinetic chain. Now, as we look at the slow motion example, you'll see how I'm using my legs and I'm coiling my shoulders past the hips. This creates this trunk stretch, and then I begin to uncoil from the ground up, and you'll see how the body rotates up to contact. At contact, you'll see how the trunk stops rotating and the arm continues. Now, just to demonstrate how much power is coming from the ground, using my legs, hips, and core, keep my arm nice and loose, you'll see how much power I'm able to generate by using the body segments correctly. Now, Vic Braden broke it down so well. He talked about 4 body segments, the first being from the ankle to the knee, the second segment from the knee to the hip, the third segment from the hip to the shoulder, you don't count the head, and then the arm is the 4th segment. So as we begin to uncoil the body, the first segment will rotate, so you'll see my knees begin to rotate in. The second segment then follows, you see my hip, and then you'll see the third segment, the trunk, and then the 4th segment, the arm continues. So it works like that, 1, 2, 3, 4. And by stopping the link, the following link will actually speed up approximately 1.5 times faster than you can recruit muscle. So each time you stop a link, you're gaining more and more speed, kind of like a whipping effect. So one way to work on that is we use the X Factor drill. Now this stems from Welby Van Horn's 3H system of balance. Now, first going to demonstrate it from more of a beginner's point of view, where we have less rotational power. Right, so you're going to start like this. You can put your hands on your hips or your hands on your shoulders. I like to start on the hips. And simply what you'll do is just kind of pivot and get the weight to the outside leg, the right leg. Then you'll step forward or step down to the court, and then you want to rotate up and finish with your body weight on the front leg. So you can do that again. So from here, you're just going to pivot, you step down, you rotate up. And then one more time, you pivot, you step down, you rotate up, and you hold. You'll see how the back heel is facing the back fence. See how my shoulders, hips, and knees are aligned, facing straight ahead. So you then can complete that drill over and over, and then you can advance it, and this is more for intermediate players or advanced players. We add more rotation to this, and we add more power centers and start pre-stretching the muscles. So now instead of just pivoting, we actually want to step out and turn the shoulders past the hips. Now it's important that you release that back heel so you can get this trunk dissociation where the shoulder line is turned past the hip line, creating that X, and you're placing those muscles across your trunk on stretch. Now you see this with great players like an Alcaraz, a Yannick Sinner, you'll see them all do this. Now from here, we're going to step forward, and you're going to step with the heel, so your weight is slightly back, so you're going to be transferred to the front foot at contact. Now let's see it again. See, I step out, the toes are pointed across the baseline, so you can turn the shoulders past the hips. We step with the heel, we transfer the weight, and we rotate upwards, finishing like this. Now, one thing is, as you begin to rotate, you can actually start to push through the back leg and think of taking your hip and your core, it's almost like a corset, and you're driving and rotating in this direction, 45 degrees upwards and to my right being right-handed. So I can feel this as I rotate. That's really going to help you to add a lot of power to your forehand. Now, something to keep in mind, when you start to use the ground, your legs, hips, and your core, you start to generate power from your body. So you're less likely to then overcompensate with the upper body, which can lead to injury, but also when you do that, it ends up pulling the swing off the shot, and that's what people end up missing. So focusing on using the lower body can really help you with not only power, but also consistency. Now once you've gone through the X Factor drills, you definitely want to do some shadow swings and start to feel how you're turning here, and as you go step down, the racket's falling, and then you, at this point here, begin to rotate as you begin to accelerate the swing upwards and forwards to contact. You just catch the racket nice and high. So you can then implement the shadow swings with the racket. If you are enjoying today's content and would like to receive your own personalized video review of your forehand, where an OTI instructor can pinpoint the key power principle that you need to focus on the most, make sure you check out the link below to our special trial offer. We get access to all our video courses, and you can send in a video of your forehand to receive your own personalized video analysis. The third power principle, using the non-hitting arm as your reactive brake. So we just talked about the 4 body segments, and we want to use the left arm, in my case, to stop the trunk rotation at contact. That way the arm can then accelerate and speed up, but also the swing will translate out to the target. So we get more effortless power, but also allows the swing to continue out to the target, increasing consistency. Now, why the non-hitting arm plays such a vital role? It really helps align the swing to the target, which is your ball. Now think about this, your arm weighs between 12 to 14 pounds on average. So imagine you take a 14-pound dumbbell from the gym and you do this. You would feel how that just takes your body off to the side and throws you off balance. But because the arm's attached to your body, you don't really feel it. So you really want to control this. So from a beginner's perspective, we just talk about catching the racket, and we'll see this with the best players in the world warming up. So when you're warming up, swinging slowly, you can simply catch the racket with the non-hitting hand. So it's vital that we turn with both hands on the racket to at least parallel to the baseline. Now, as you begin to swing up to contact, you can start to think of there being a flight of stairs in the direction of where you're aiming, because you always want to lift your swing towards your target and feel like your left hand, in my case, is going up the flight of stairs and I'm catching nice and high over the shoulder. This just really helps to organize the hands nicely and also teaches me what to do with that arm. So let's take a look at that again. Just imagine there's a flight of stairs going to the target, wherever that is, because you want the strings to go to the target as your shoulder lifts. So you turn with both hands connected here. Okay, you want to stay connected. You separate. And as you begin to swing up, think of the left hand going up the flight of stairs as you catch the racket nice and high. So you can do a lot of shadow swings that way, and then you can try it with a self feed. So you want to just turn, you adjust into the court, and then you catch the racket nice and high. So it's a great way to implement and to work on that left arm. Now as you're moving into more advanced, intermediate, or advanced, you end up swinging too fast, and it's very difficult to then catch the racket. So that what happens then is, once you begin to uncoil the body, see the arm will start to clear. Now the key is this elbow should bend as it clears out of the way. And you want to get to this point here, somewhere around here where the hand's close to the chest and its palm, we say, is pointing forward, right? This is just kind of a corrective measure, but you see how the elbow has not broken the plane here. It's still out in front of me. So when you swing up to contact, you want to feel how it's connected. How as you begin to uncoil, it starts to then move away from the body. It clears, but then it stays there. It doesn't continue. Otherwise, what happens, you'll see how my shoulders over-rotate and it pulls the swing. And also, I'm losing power. You just look at the great players like Federer comes to mind, Nadal, Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz. You'll see how they hold their trunk through contact. So they're keeping the head still, but they also are controlling the non-hitting arm. Now, a great way to feel that stopping effect is you can do this up against a wall, a fence. I'm going to use this pole right here. Now you position yourself about 45 degrees away from the pole, so you've got some space here. I'm going to hold the pole with my hand as I sit right here and I rotate. So I'm rotating my hips and core, and I want to keep my hand in position. You'll feel how that shoulder is stopping. It's almost like you're working your right hip and core against your left shoulder. This will give you this effect. So I shadow swing up to meet the ball, weight's in the front leg. Then you can step away and leave the hand there, and you'll start to feel how you create this imaginary post right here and how the left side stops. And what happens, then your right arm, hitting arm, can continue and speed up. So there are 2 ways to help you to train that non-hitting arm as your reactive brake. Now keep in mind the principle of keeping your head still, eyes fixed to contact, seeing the gross is also critical, because these 2 things work in tandem to stop the rotation and create that whipping effect. The 4th power principle, emphasizing the legs. Up until this point, we focus on keeping the head still, using your body rotation, using the left arm as your reactive brake. Now we want to add the legs to that. We built up to this point. So the more we can use the legs, and we say sit in the chair, the more we can use the ground and the more leverage we now have. If you look at the best players in the world, you often, if you just draw a line where their head is, you'll see as they're hitting the ball, you'll see how the head breaks the line. Now the head's staying down, but the body's lifting. Now, when they're in trouble, yeah, that's where they're going to maybe stay down or they don't have time. But when they're looking to add force, you better believe that they're really bending the knees and they're really pushing, and as a result, the body is lifting. Let's take a look here at a slow motion example, and you can see as I'm stepping forward into the court how I'm almost sitting in the chair, getting nice and low, and then I begin to lift and uncoil from the ground up. Now let's look at that in the open stance. You'll see something very similar, setting up over the outside leg, the right leg, and you'll see how the body begins to lift and uncoil off the outside leg. So an effective drill you can do is sitting in a chair. So you can start seated like this. You can simply drop the ball for yourself and then transfer your weight to the front foot, and you want to finish up on the back toe. So you get that body rotation. You can just do that over and over. You can then progress that with down and up with rotation. When I'm starting in here, I go down and I rotate up when my back heel faces the back fence. Now, be careful of this. You don't want to miss the bench. So I like to put my calves into the bench here. And even if it's just the idea of getting low, sometimes this might be too low, it'll just help you to get that feeling. Now, what happens is a lot of times players struggle to do this because either they're very tight in the hamstrings or weak in the hamstrings. So when they go to bend, they actually bend this way. So what you got to do is you got to push your hips back. See, it's like I'm sitting in a chair or I'm squatting in a gym. See how my knees are kind of staying over my ankles. So this is where the sitting in a chair or using a bench can be very helpful. I'm starting over here. I'm going to sit and then rotate up. You can then do that over and over, and be very careful. Do not overdo in the beginning because your quads will not be thanking you the next day. But from here, you can then progress to self feeds, onto a ball machine, then into a hit. And this principle applies to all levels, whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Obviously, advanced players will get much lower, but by bending your knees, you start to use the ground, engage the kinetic chain, but also from a control perspective, it helps you to get the racket and hand below contact. So as you lift and you swing inside out to contact, as you speed up, you're generating more true topspin, which helps bring the ball down, increasing your margins and increasing your consistency. The fifth power principle is gravity. So if I let go of this racket, the racket will simply drop, gaining speed. So when you're working your forehand, you want to prepare with the racket head up during unit turn, so you can use the force from gravity to begin to accelerate the racket. So just like a swing set or pendulum, the downswing creates the upswing. Now, a study which Vic Braden did with Federer and Nadal is he was able to study the swing speed in different stages of the swing. And during the unit turn, at the completion of the unit turn, the racket was moving 5 miles an hour. Now, it was early, it was moving slow. So it was like a two-part swing. It's turning, and then the swing would begin through gravity. At the bottom of the gravity drop, it was approximately 18 to 20 miles an hour. So it gained speed here. And then that's when they added the body, and they continued the momentum and acceleration to about between 76 to 78 miles an hour. So it was like a slow, medium, fast, but using gravity as a force. So if you stop down here, or you take the racket back down and low, you now have to generate the force again. You're not able to use the effects of gravity. So you want to have that continuous swing and prepare with the racket up. So a good way to feel this, and this is a Swedish drill, of course you want to turn as a unit with the racket head up. Then you can actually physically let go of the racket with your hand and then catch it at the bottom as your body and racket fall together. I'm just turning in here, there. See, I'm dropping and then catching it. Then you can drop it. When you catch it, you continue the momentum like a swing set. Then to ensure that you're not pulling across your body too early, you can actually trace a fence as you do this. So you can turn as your unit, you drop the racket, and then you trace the fence here. You want to keep the wrist laid back. That way you have that nice long hitting zone. So I'm getting that effortless power through gravity, and by tracing the fence, I have the long hitting zone, so I'm increasing my consistency and accuracy. And this principle applies to all players, from beginners all the way to advanced players. Remember, the hardest thing about tennis is the unlearning process. So you want to learn to use the body and the racket and use gravity as a source of power. Now, the sixth power principle is the inside-out swing path. Now, the swing has 3 directions to it, right? So the first one is there's extension going out towards the target. There's the height, that's the low to high, giving you topspin. But also there's the width. So as you swing forwards and upwards, you're also swinging it away from your body. So what happens is, the further you can contact the ball away from your body, the longer the swing radius. So just like if you're on a merry-go-round, you're going to move faster in the outer circumference. So if you increase the swing radius, you're also going to increase swing speed. So let's first go over some terminology, understanding swing width. So if I just start with my hand down by my side here, and I take out the length component, but I just lift my shoulder out to the side, you'll see if you had to trace the tip of my racket or the tip of my hand, it creates a nice arc or semicircle. Now terminology wise, when the hand's close to the body, it's on the inside. As you lift away, you create more distance, it's on the outside. Now, as you continue to lift, it then comes back to the inside. A lot of people feel like they have to force the swing around, but what happens is as you continue to lift, the racket naturally, or the swing naturally comes back across your body. All right, so let's take a look at a slow motion example where you see I'm demonstrating the inside out swing path. And you'll see, prepare the racket up, it then drops into the slot position, the lowest part of the swing, it's close to the body. As I begin to uncoil, pushing from the legs, uncoiling the hips and core, the swing starts to move forwards and upwards, but also away in an inside-out direction. Now look at the spacing at contact. Then I continue to lift and extend beyond contact. You get to this point where the hand's about shoulder height, where the swing has not come across the body. And then from here, as we continue to lift, it naturally starts to cross the body as it rotates through the shoulder and the forearm into the finished position. Let's take a look at that one more time in slow motion. You see how I get into the inside slot position, and the swing then goes away from the body in an inside-out manner, before then coming back to the inside naturally. Now the inside-out swing path, the swing width component, is more of an intermediate to advanced concept. I do think for beginners it's hard to conceptualize, but definitely want to have extension and swinging from low to high. Now over here I've lined up 6 tennis balls. Growing up in South Africa, when we learned to play, we were told we had to hit through 6 cold drinks. All right, now what are cold drinks? Well, in South Africa, that meant Coke bottles, all right? So we had to hit through all 6. So you want to really extend and swing from low to high to your target. I'm going to show you from a different perspective that when you swing inside out, it's easier to continue along those 6 cold drinks. If you swing straight ahead, we'll see how the racket actually pulls across the body too soon. So you'll see if I start to extend to the target, and I don't go inside out, you'll see how because of the shoulder and the way it's attached, the swing naturally comes across the body. In order to really extend through 6 cold drinks to the target, we actually have to swing inside out. So you'll see how, just like the circumference to a circle, when I do this, the strings go out to the target longer. So you have better extension. So you have a longer hitting zone for better accuracy, consistency. You've increased the swing radius, so now the racket will be moving faster on the outer circumference. And also it's a prerequisite for hitting true topspin. When you swing inside out, your strings do this up against the back of the ball, allowing it to spin end over end, where it travels or spins from 6 to 12 in the clock face. If you swing the opposite from outside in, the ball will then spin on this axis and you lose the margin of safety which you gain through topspin. Now, an essential component to swinging inside out is having appropriate spacing to the ball. The first thing is you want to establish your spacing using a fence. So you can take your thumb and your pinky, place it into your lat, your tricep, and now you sort of have the spacing from the fence in my neutral stance. And simply I can just basically lift like this, and you see how the racket gets close to the fence. So I'm going from the outside back to the inside. So inside, outside, inside. So I have the space right now. Whoops. Now from here, we can simply shadow swing. We get into that low slot position, close to the body on the inside. As we extend and lift, you're also adding swing width. So see, I get close to the fence. I keep lifting and extending. I just trace as long as I can. As I keep lifting, it should naturally start to come around. Now, when you do this correctly, you'll feel the slight kind of pull in the direction of the ball. That's telling you you're doing the right thing here. So it's great to do a lot of shadow swings just to get the feeling of the inside-out swing path. So ideally, when you're setting up on your forehand, if you extend your non-dominant arm along the baseline, it helps you to give you space. Now, if I extend and I have my hand over that ball, you'll see I'm still too close to really experience the inside-out swing path. So what you can do, I'm not sure if I've seen this before, this is the first time showing it to anyone, but you can choke up on the racket, hold, a backing grip, bevel 1, and now you want to try to align the strings over that ball. So now you have your arm, but also you have extra distance to account for the racket length. So you can simply just line up over here, and you see as I swing up to contact, now my racket head is now aligned with that ball. I can swing inside out. So I say you want to create the space, and then you replace. And you'll see as you do this, it helps to train the non-dominant arm, because as I rotate, it'll move out of the way. Now once you've done your shadow swings, you can then add a ball. Now I'm going to show you with the ball machine, I'm going to show you the progressions, but remember you can always do those progressions with somebody who can feed the ball underhand to you on the same side. That'll be easier, but you can just simply match the same progressions and then progress to the ball machine. All right, so I can find my space. I got my left arm out and extended. Now I can simply space and I can replace. Just meet it there, so I start to feel that spacing. So I'm swinging to the outside of the racket, and then you can progress, taking the racket away, and you're trying to now judge with your eyes and using your left arm. It's a really good way to help you to get an understanding of how much space you really need and how much reach you really have. All right, so this now brings me to the final 7th power principle concept. This is a bonus. Certainly, if you follow all the previous 6, you're going to hit not only a powerful forehand, but you're going to have some solid, sound fundamentals in place. So you're going to not only have power, but also consistency with that power. This next one is the late hitting concept, or the lag, which we see. And just be careful, this one is can wreak havoc with your forehand, so this is for advanced players, but when I go through this, always want to make sure you're properly warmed up with your arm anytime you do this, right? But what it is as you turn and prepare, instead of the racket tip falling towards the back fence, we see the racket tip beginning to fall towards the side fence. Now what happens is, as you go down, your body and swing go down together. As you begin to uncoil, there and thereabouts, your hips and core begin to rotate. Then we'll see the racket tip will now flip. It will flip from the outside position to the inside position. So what happens is the racket tip is really the last thing to move forward. That gets you into the slot position. Now when you do that, what happens is your racket's moving a greater distance over the same amount of time, but also you're placing the muscles across your forearm on stretch. So you have that stored energy, which you then can release up to contact. Now one of 2 mistakes to avoid when you do this, a lot of people, when they get to the slot position, they set the hand, they go back and do this. Where instead it's an action-reaction. As you begin to uncoil, see how my hands are actually continuing forward as the racket tip flips. That's important. The other thing is, when people do this, they tend to do that and they lose the all-important hitting zone. So when you do this, you want to feel like you're keeping the wrist laid back, and if you have to let go of the racket, it will actually fly to the outside of the court. If you're doing this, you feel like it's going to go across your body. Fly across your body means you playing from the wrist this way. So you're going to be very careful when doing this. And of course, you want to make sure you're probably warmed up, and don't ever force the positions. You don't want to go to outer range of mobility in your wrist and forearm. So there are the 6 key power principles on the forehand, plus the 7th bonus for the advanced players. As you'll notice, if you develop good, sound forehand fundamentals, you'll then have good forehand power. Now, how do you go about implementing this in your own forehand? Well, you can either go through it in a step-by-step manner in the order as presented here, or you can identify the key power principle which your forehand is lacking. You can also take advantage of our special trial offer. If you look at the link below this video, where you get access to all our video courses, and you can send in a video of your forehand, where an OTI instructor can then analyze it for you and help identify what that key power principle is that you need to work on and focus on most on your forehand. Please let us know in the comments below which power principle you think you need to work on the most. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. It helps other tennis players like yourself who like learning about tennis find these videos. Thank you.